Well, I believe a day of reckoning is coming, guys. Going back to the 2020 election. Now, I'm going to play this clip in a second to refresh your memory what Sidney Powell was talking about, but I have some other things to show you guys. There's so many videos coming out now connected to Venezuela, Dominion voting machines, and how the 2020 election was essentially rigged, stolen. I've gone over some of it before in the past, but now with this coming out, and even President Trump has tweeted out a video about this specifically. I think this is the time to reinvestigate this, and that indicates that that is what they're getting ready to do. But just to remind you quickly, and then I'll show you something else, and we'll come back to this in a second. But it says, I can hardly wait to present all the evidence we've collected on Dominion. It was created to produce and alter voting results in Venezuela for Hugo Chavez, who he preceded Maduro, right? And then shipped internationally to manipulate votes for purchase in other countries, including this one. Let me show you this, because we gotta, there's a lot, like I said, so we just gotta sift through it all. But this says here, Biden visited Serbia in May of 2009 to personally recruit computer hackers to control future Dominion software in the elections. Now, this is coming from former U.S. Army officer Scott Bennett of counterterrorism analyst.
That Biden visited Serbia in May of 2009 to personally recruit computer hackers there to control future Dominion software design. On Dominion's website, Serbia is marked as the location of the company's branch. It is significant to note that Scott Bennett worked as a counterterrorism threat finance analyst, as well as was the liaison officer to the State Department coordinator for counterterrorism under Ambassador Del Daly, former general of Joint Special Operations Command. So in my capacity as working for General Daly at the State Department Counterterrorism Office, I interfaced with some of the activities that were going on in 2009 with regards to UBS securities and some of these terrorist activities that we were tracking at the State Department and at Special Operations Command and at the Joint Military Information Support Command. Coincidentally, when Dominion became the global focus after the general election, more than 100 Dominion employees, who accounted for 1/3 of the total number of employees, deleted their records on LinkedIn, including Serbian employees. On July 16, 2018, Dominion issued a press release announcing that Staple Street Capital in New York and the management team of Dominion had acquired Dominion. The media briefing described Staple Street Capital as a medium-sized private equity firm. Soon after the general election on November 3rd, Staple Street Capital's website almost changed its face immediately. All the information about the company's founder and the company's investment portfolio was deleted.
Yes, guys. Yes. Okay, now let's take a look at this. It says, Smartmatic and Dominion voting machines have been accused of manipulating elections as far back as 2006 or earlier. Today, we have the proof and to end election fraud once and for all, not just in the U.S., but around the world. Every country must demand election integrity.
Antonio Mujica and his partner Alfredo Anzola received a small business loan from the Venezuelan government only months before the recall election. These corporate registration documents from Venezuela show the Venezuelan government owned 28% of the stock of another company they started, Bizta, which adapted voting software for the Smartmatic machines in the 2004 elections. The same document shows a Chavez government minister, Omar Montillo, was on the board of directors. The Chavez government gave Bizta, Smartmatic, and another company a $91 million contract to run voting machines for the 2004 election. The next year, the owners of Smartmatic, primarily owned by Venezuelan businessmen, bought Sequoia, one of the top electronic voting system companies in the United States, for $16 million. Smartmatic is a labyrinth of international holding companies owned by Venezuelan businessmen. Smartmatic Group NV of Curaçao, Netherlands, Antilles owns Smartmatic International BV of Amsterdam, Netherlands, owns Smartmatic Corporation of Florida, which bought Sequoia Voting Systems of California, USA. When Smartmatic bought the U.S. voting machine companies, the U.S. government did not review the sale. Many experts say those voting machines were manipulated in Venezuela to give President Hugo Chavez a victory. Exit polls done by the U.S. firm Penn, Schoen and Berland had Chavez losing 41% to 59%. But the next day, Chavez declared victory, reversing the score, saying he won 59% of the vote.
Everything was computed in the favor of the government. So the only explanation is that the Smartmatic machines had been programmed in that way.
A Harvard mathematician crunched the numbers on the Venezuelan election.
It had to be the Smartmatic system. All these machines talk to a central computer and report on their results. And in that mechanism, as they communicate with the central machine can report anything.
Smartmatic is technically based in Boca Raton, Florida, but the president of the company, Jack Blaine, testified to the Chicago City Council. Fewer than a dozen Smartmatic employees work in Florida. The majority of the workers are based in Venezuela.
And we know that they are under the dictator rule. These aren't like the regular Venezuelans that are in that. It's part of this, the Hugo Chavez and then Maduro. That they're people, they're cronies. That is who our vote. We vote on machines that are based out of there with these corrupt leaders, which I've shown you the videos of how the majority of Venezuelans are Christian or Catholic, people of a very strong faith, and they have been tortured, kidnapped. I mean, children have been violated, imprisoned. A third of the country had to flee there, but yet somehow we thought it was okay to buy machines from this corrupt government. And it ties to Serbia. Guys, when I tell you the tendrils of this thing is so wild, it's so far and so deep, it's going to take a couple videos. But let me show you what President Trump posted. Says here, look what we have here. Dominion voting fraud. Trump posted a video on Dominion voting machine fraud. Coincidence? A Venezuelan military intelligence whistleblower says the CIA outsourced election rigging tech like Smartmatic and Dominion from Venezuela. The CIA is full of corruption. So let's play this.
I found that there were about 25,000 ballots that were not printed from the official Dominion PDF ballot. In other words, the printing process, appearance, is completely different than what you would get from a first-generation PDF printing.
We had approximately 25,000 ballots that were not created from the PDF that is used for the election process. So in other words, the election provider comes up with ballots, and it's specific to a geographical area, because the person that lives in this neighborhood might not be voting for the same people that live in that neighborhood or another neighborhood. So here in Maricopa County, from memory, you had 5,012 or something like that, just over 5,000 different permutations and combinations to the ballots. Then that's multiplied by 2 because there's a Spanish version that's available for each one of these ballots, but it's the same ballot with the same people, just in a different language. So we've got we'll just say 5,000 different ballots for now that are created ahead of time, and those are created in PDF. Now the big reason why is that you have a third party send out mail-in ballots, so those have to be created in advance. And second, for your early voting, you have vote on demand. So in other words, even if I live way out in the corner of the county, but I work downtown, I could go to something downtown that could print my ballot from my area, and I could vote here. It's convenient. A lot of people do that. So these PDFs are created in advance. They're obviously good quality PDFs, and when they're printed, they should look roughly or exactly the same. In this group of ballots, I find that the quality is severely degraded from what a PDF would be as if printed on demand, or if printed by your third-party provider who prints these all the time.
I'm Eric Spakeen. I'm a forensic chemist and a forensic document analyst. That means I deal with all aspects of question documents, when they were made, if they've been altered, changed, or added to, and how long ink has been on paper. I was asked if I had experience in election matters to look at primarily printing processes, machine copied marks, CPS code, which is a counterfeit protection system. And I said that I did, and I traveled to Arizona with 3 other people from my office that I had. Number one is that there were a series of ballots that I examined the photographs of, and Dominion, as the election subcontractor, produced ballots for each of the zones or districts that were involved, at least in the area that I looked at here in Maricopa County. And there were 5,000 approximately, a little over, different ballots. As you know, in a state, there could be 2 different senator races. There could be 10 different House races. And all the permutations and combinations is what gives you the 5,000. So they create a final ballot for each one of these districts or zones or regions, so that when you go in and you give your name and it knows you're from this area, you would get this ballot to vote on all the issues that pertain to you, and only the issues that pertain to you. And I found that there were about 25,000 ballots that were not printed from the official Dominion PDF ballot. In other words, the printing process, appearance, is completely different than what you would get from a first-generation PDF printing. As you can imagine, the lines are perfect. So they're perfectly straight, no breaks in them, the circles or ovals as they may be, and they're a solid line. When I examined some of the early voting ballots and election day ballots from various polling locations, there were about 25,000 that did not have printing from this perfect PDF, as you would expect, but instead had breaks in all the same places around an oval. So you can look at one of the ovals and there are imperfections in the line, and they're in the same place on every single one of these ballots.
These 25,000 unidentifiable ballots alone represent over double the amount of Joe Biden's 10,457 vote mark.
In July of 21, actually before that, we told them in June, we told them that we suspected, from what we're seeing, 25,000 plus counterfeit, inauthentic ballots. That was early on in the process. Again, because of propaganda by the GOP's attorney, the GOP, other conservative operatives, they planted the seed inside this that you can't trust that, no, that's not it, etc. You'll hear more about it. But every one of the people up there knew this in advance, even of this hearing today. Now, the reason I bring that up is they had well over a year and a half to react to this so it wouldn't be duplicated in 2022. But they didn't. They did nothing, and they allowed it. They enabled this to be done again.
So like I said, guys, there's a lot that goes into this. From Serbia to Biden going over there, guys, the machines themselves. There is another piece, and then I'm going to show you that other video I showed you. I started with Sidney Powell, but this video I want to do, but I think I'm gonna have to wait for another, for my next one, because this is like 12 minutes, right? But it helps explain it, but I'll read a little bit to you. It says here, Dominion voting systems machines are so insecure that CISA, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, released a security advisory on Dominion voting systems, Democracy Suite ImageCast X, because of its extensive vulnerabilities. In 2020, Dominion's own released emails confirm and show that their hub in Serbia was accessing Colorado's election machines in real time and was voting. Why do Serbians have full access to U.S. voting machines and are able to vote? Now, like I said, there's a lot that goes into this, but there's this Serbia connection and Biden going over there, his connections over there, like it's just corrupt from top to bottom. But let me play this because I think this is vindication for Sidney Powell, who was sued, put through the ringer, and it looks like she was right from the beginning, talking about Venezuela and talking about these machines. Now, I know this is going to be investigated. I want to see what comes out with this. But I from everything that I'm seeing and everything I know, I mean, we know, even when he said that the GOP and that they were part of this, guys, I always tell you, it's two wings of the same bird, right? There's corruption all over the place. I don't know if we've ever had a real election in this country. I don't know what is real. I don't know if any of this stuff has ever been real, but people were fired, sued, put in jail. All types of things happened to them because they were and criticized. People were blackballed, taken off of different social media platforms, their channels on YouTube deleted. I mean, just put through so much, when now we're seeing how corrupt these things are now looking back. And all of that information is true. And we were told not to believe your eyes and ears, just trust the mainstream media, but we know that they lie. I mean, it's just so evil on so many levels. Like in my last video where I said that the left, they are out there, these fake protesters getting millions of dollars because it's connected to China in order to do these fake protests in all these different cities. Venezuelans are very upset and angry, even fighting people who are trying to protest what happened because they're very happy to finally be free. But they are literally calling for Maduro to be freed, and they want him to run the United States. They want him to run the United States. I kid you not. This is, you go and ask them. There's the interviews and everything. They think it's a great idea. They think he should be free. We need a dictator like that in communism here in this country. And they don't care that millions of Venezuelans, which the majority of the country, like I told you, is Christian and Catholic, they don't care that they're tortured and killed. They want that same man who did that to come here to do that in this country. It's the same thing we see in Nigeria and in Congo and the different countries in Africa where they don't care. They don't care as long when it's Christians. If it's anybody else, yes, but it has to fit their agenda. This is how evil and dark times are. And if your eyes are not open and not seeing how all of this has been rigged and put together for decades, and that they have made sure these things happen so that we are left in the dark, but now that we are able to see these things freely and we're able to analyze these things, there's more freedom to be able to talk about these things. Now looking back, you can see, wow, like they in no circumstances wanted us to ever have a free and fair election. Like that is pretty much clear based on the evidence that I'm seeing.
Can hardly wait to put forth all the evidence we have collected on Dominion, starting with the fact it was created to produce altered voting results in Venezuela for Hugo Chavez, and then shipped internationally to manipulate votes for purchase in other countries, including this one. It was funded by money from Venezuela and Cuba, and China has a role in it also. We have staggering statistical evidence. We have staggering testimony from witnesses, including one who was personally in briefings when all of this was discussed and planned, beginning with Hugo Chavez and how it was designed there, and then saw it happening in this country. As soon as the state shut down on election night and stopped counting, those are the states where the most egregious problems occurred. We also need to look at, and we're beginning to collect evidence on the financial interests of some of the governors and secretaries of state who actually bought into the Dominion systems to line their own pockets by getting a voting machine in that would either make sure their election was successful or they got money for their family from it. Well, for fraud this serious, I think even if the states are stupid enough to go ahead and certify the votes where we know the machines were operating and producing altered election results, then they will be set aside by the fraud also. I mean, we are talking about hundreds of thousands of votes. President Trump won this election in a landslide. It's going to be irrefutable. Patriots are coming forward faster than we can collect their information with testimony they're willing to give under oath about how their votes were stolen and how the machines operated. They were updated the night of the election, sometimes after the election. We've got statistical evidence that shows hundreds of thousands of votes being just put in and replicated. There needs to be a massive criminal investigation, and it's going to affect millions of voters and elections.
So there you have it, guys. I mean, like I told you, there's a lot to get through with this, but I feel like truth is finally coming out. Like I told you, I believe we are in the last days. I believe, the things that they even say, well, we're not going to have elections again. I think this may tie into that. I don't know if Biden's presidency is going to be reversed. There's just layers to this that even more than what I'm telling you, it's so much corruption. It's so dark and so far reaching. I don't think most people can comprehend it. I would have to walk you through how many layers of this muck that has been going on in our country. And really, they've lied to us our entire lives, our entire history. When I tell you that Ghislaine Maxwell's father owned McGraw-Hill, and that's where we got the majority of our school books, like everything has just been a deception. Okay, everything has been a deception. And anything that's truth, well, then they ridicule and belittle you, punish you, do whatever they have to in order to silence truth. But now we're seeing truth coming out more and more because I believe we are getting to an appointed end. So guys, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell, and yeah, I will see you very soon.